All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn series. We're very excited to have Dawn from Next Level Consulting here to discuss mental health in the workplace with us. I'm Jessica with Market House team, and Dawn is actually a very dear friend of mine. We've been friends for like 9 years-ish, probably somewhere close to that. We've also collaborated together with quite a few clients and projects in our community as well. And she is just a very wonderful human being, but also a powerhouse when it comes to advocating for people's mental health and rights, and especially in the workplace. So I'm very excited to have her here. So we're very excited to be able to do this. We are going to be posting this at a later date. This is pre-recorded. And so if you do have any questions while you are watching it, when it's convenient for you, please feel free to message either of us and send us your questions if you wanted us to elaborate on something that's going to be discussed, or if it's just something that has come up recently in your workplace or something in this season. For sure, reach out, send us a message. We're also going to be having resources that we will be posting that Dawn will be touching base about. And then we'll make those available to you along with this video to be able to watch, so that you get a context for what we were talking about and you have some actionable steps to take along with you when this is all said and done. All right, so if you are watching this after we have put up the recording, we are very open to being able to answer some of your questions. So please send us a message if there's anything that we touch base on that you want us to elaborate on, especially Dawn. Send her a message or an email. She is under Next Level Consulting. So we are, once again, very excited to have Dawn here. And she's just gonna give us some of her wisdom this morning or afternoon or evening or whenever you are watching this. This is the magic of technology. So once again, my name is Jessica. I am from the Market House team. And and we're just very excited to be able to chat about this topic that we are a little bit tired of it being a taboo thing to talk about. And so we're gonna hit that hard and address it today. And so, Dawn, let's do a little bit of a get to know you portion. So do you want to share with us, where did you grow up? Are you from here originally?
No, well, my formative years, like high school years, were all in Terrace, BC. So I am from BC, born and bred. I have moved around a lot into the Okanagan of BC. I lived for 5 years in Ontario. Prior to Ontario, or after Ontario, we moved to Alberta, our family, and then moved to Leduc. We've been in Leduc since 2009. Same house, same community, same neighborhood. So our roots are pretty deep and planted, and that's where we are. And that's how we sort of, over the past few years, have evolved our lives to fit into the community and are very aware of some of the opportunities in the community, such as mental health.
Perfect. So do you want to share with us a little bit of your work background and how that ties into what we're talking about today with mental health in the workplace?
Sure. So in 2015, through life changes and whatnot, I decided to co-create a consulting company with a friend of mine, Amber Cook, who's also part of the Market House team. And so the two of us started off by helping small and medium businesses kind of handle whatever they needed. And when we had some areas of strength, each of us, and we complemented each other. And so we did that for a few years. And then in 2018, Amber decided to venture off and start her amazing co-working space. And so Next Level is completely ran by me now. And so I work hands-on with primarily business owners, sometimes their management team or their leadership team. So I'll come along and support them. And the difference between traditional consultants is that they put you on programs and systems, and they always want you to follow a specific way. I don't do that. I tailor my services and my support based on what you need. And in order to do that effectively, what that looks like is actually kind of getting to know you and develop the relationship and know your strengths and weaknesses as an owner or as an operator. And then we kind of move from there. In terms of my background, I spent 3 years with Victim Services here in Leduc as an advocate. I'm currently the president of the board for the Boys and Girls Club. I've been that for 5 years. I've been with the organization for 6. I'm currently the chair of FCSS Advisory Board, and so that's the social services board here in the city of Leduc. I also teach basic grief training, basically the elements and the components of grief training and how that actually is trauma-based. I'm also currently working on my conflict management and negotiation certificate at NATE. And I just am in the process of launching Renewed Resilience Boutique with a great dear friend of ours, Lindsay, who has started Renewed Resilience. And Renewed Resilience model is all about supporting mental health, all of those additional supports and that collective holistic experience when it comes to mental health and the supports. I'm also trained in CISM, which is critical incident management, stress management. So handling the initial aspects of trauma and walking people from that frozen moment of the trauma into the next step or the next level. Yeah, I'm also trained in that. So I'm coming from zero experience and I don't know what I'm talking about.
None whatsoever.
Just pulling stuff out of the pocket.
I love it. So I just want to quickly shout out, hello, Carrie, Corey, Haley, Taylor. We've got a bunch of people on with us. Very exciting. We're very sorry about the technicality that was Facebook today. Apparently it just didn't really want to, whatever. It was testing our mental health in the workplace. That is what it was doing. So we are on Zoom now. We are recording this, so we are going to be posting it again when we're done. But because it's live and we do have people on with us, if you hear anything that sparks some questions in you, or you are currently dealing with something that is mental health in the workplace related, and you want us to elaborate on something or give you some tips, please drop it into the chat section while we are doing this live video. Again, we're very excited. This is Dawn from Next Level Consulting. I'm Jessica from the Market House team, and we are very excited to be here with you today talking about something that needs to be talked about. Yeah. So, John, do you want to just dive right into it? Here we go.
Give her.
Okay, so we do have some pre-written topic questions that we want to go over. But again, please throw your stuff into the chat or send us a message after this recording if you still have questions. And we will also have resources that Dawn is going to be talking about that will be available to you as well, that we will post. So it's easy access and you can have some actionable steps to take once this is over.
Yeah.
More people jumping on. This is going to be a crowded room. Here we go.
This is fabulous.
So, first and foremost, what are some impacts of unchecked mental health in the workplace?
Well, first and foremost, what you usually see is low morale. Employers don't usually catch on until they see low productivity or low output, whatever they want to define it as. But first and foremost, what you see is low morale. You see it in the individual. Then you might see it in those around the individual when management or leadership is not responding to that individual. Of course, low productivity impacts the bottom line, impacts customer service, and that's usually when the employer grabs their attention. But on an individual basis, we're talking about that low morale, their own self-esteem, their own productivity, their own development. Corporately, we're talking about turnover. So that's high on the expenditures if you're constantly turning over people. Potentially even theft, because now people start to live in a justification world. And when justification exists, a lot of times people will find a reason to maneuver through the bad choices. And then you end up with loss prevention issues, theft. You also potentially expose yourself to some safety issues, some workplace violence, some extreme levels of workplace violence or extreme rage with your clients or your customers as well. And ultimately, it moves all the way from the progression of the individual to the management team, to the employees, to the customers, and then it potentially could move ultimately into national news story because, there's a reason the word postal actually happened is there was an epidemic of a lot of postal workers under the high stress and the demands of the job that they would go back into their workplace and exhibit workplace violence. And so that's where that term actually came from, and that's what we're trying to avoid by starting to have some of these conversations.
Yeah, very good. how does current mental health in the workplace actually affect your ROIs or your KPIs too during staff assessments? And how do you address this?
So for clarity, your ROI is your return on investment. Really, why do you're paying an employee to do a job, and it's at a prorated rate. They're going to give you some performance that is going to then generate enough revenue or provide a service that is going to then feed back into the business. And KPIs, for everybody that that isn't familiar with it, those are your key performance indicators. So now we're talking about the work that the employee is paid to do, the tasks. And then the KPIs are the actual indicators that validate whether those tasks are being done, and they also are measurements of that task. And so when we're talking all the things that I previously said in the last question, when we're talking about poor performance, we could be talking about poor customer satisfaction because you've got a sad or depressed employee with mental health issues interacting with the customer. And so now you've got poor customer service, potentially lost revenue from that. And then when it comes back to assessment time, you're dealing with an employee who has unreasonable expectations as to where their performance is. Potentially, they're talking about leaving, or they're not caring. They're just accepting the check. They just feel like they're just another number. Especially, here's one of the key aspects when we're talking to leadership, is that if mental health issues go unchecked by leadership or ignored or inadequately addressed and dealt with, then the employee actually just seeks validation, and they can slip even further because the validation says nobody cares about me. Nobody cares that I'm sad, depressed, having issues, struggling in whatever area it might be. And so then they start to slip into, they follow the justification, and that can impact the business. But then now it becomes an even more a safety issue because the employee starts to actually believe through what they're already feeling, and then the validation, the lack of care from their employer, that they're just another number, that they're just another employee, somebody who's just coming in to punch in and punch out. And so that just goes back and forth, chicken egg. One makes the situation worse because now the employee starts to underperform and doesn't achieve results and has communication issues and has behavioral issues. The employer's wondering what went wrong, and they just want to discipline them out the door. And then potentially you're leading yourself down a path of legal issues or labor board issues because you didn't, as the employer or the leader, handle the issue correctly or within the confines of legislation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a massive, massive snowball effect. But we know that even outside of the workplace, we know that when mental health issues are unchecked, there's this snowball of effect that impacts your social life, your home life, your work life, right? And so in the workplace, in the confines of our conversation today, in the workplace, there's a really good chance that if you're not keeping an eye on the mental health issues, that this is also going to snowball into other issues for this employee as well. So you actually have the ability, if empowered correctly with the right tools, and you actually take action, you have the ability to reduce the snowball effect and decrease the impact of that avalanche.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of those effects of the avalanche is a high turnover rate for a lot of employers, especially in this season when it's not necessarily a health related thing, it's a mental health related thing. And so
Yeah.
How do we address that? What kind of effects does that have on the turnover rate? Like, how are the two actually related?
Well, if you're actually caring and you are empathetic and you are involved and connected with the individual, connection is something that we all seek. To be in relationship with an individual should be the priority of a leader. It shouldn't be to yield a certain performance. The performance is why you hired the individual, because you had a need and you needed somebody to deliver it. I get that, and it's financially driven, it's business model driven. I get that. That's all the facts and figures of it. But once you enter into a relationship with an employee, your focus, your primary focus should be relationship based. It needs to be relationship based, because if it is relationship based and it's coming from a position of truly caring about the individual, then truly caring about the individual will naturally yield you performance and all the measurables and the KPIs. Or naturally caring about the individual might mean that the individual actually still needs to leave your company, but you're actually doing something about supporting and helping them. And you could be the only voice that is actually doing that. Mm-hmm. So when we want to impact turnover, yes, I understand that as an owner and as an operator, but that can't be your only skin in the game. You actually need to be caring about these people, because they exchange 40 plus hours of their lives a week to give you a service. And what service are you giving them back? Okay, yeah, you're cutting them a check and you're giving them benefits and they have opportunity to grow, but you're not actually impacting the self-actualization of people's needs, that epitome of their worth and their care. And if those go unchecked, then again, they slide back into justification and they start to feel like, well, I'm not being valued. I'm not being cared for. I might as well steal. I might as well not show up for work, or I might as well bite the head off of another customer or treat my coworkers poorly. And then you end up as an employer, if you're completely out of this and you're not keeping things in check, you end up having to walk the person through your disciplinary process because you just need a certain amount of performance from them. And while that's logical, it's not best business practices, and it's something that down the line you could actually end up regretting as an individual.
Yeah. So if you have recently joined us, this is live, and so we would love your feedback. If you have any questions while you're watching, please drop it into the chat. We do have some stuff that we are going to go over specifically, but we would love to tackle your questions as well while we're doing this. And if you are watching at a later date and this isn't live for you, send a message, drop it in the comments. One of us will get back to you ASAP on any questions or comments that you have. So let's dive into the how. We've covered the why. This is important to talk about. So let's go into the practicalities of it. So how, as an owner or a leader, are you actually legally allowed to check in on your staff or team, like in terms of your mental health now, especially in a pandemic?
So the answer is yes. It's the wording that trips people up. So if you've noticed that there are some performance issues with an individual, or you're noticing that they miss every fourth Monday, you can connect behaviors and patterns to a conversation. Mm-hmm. If your concern is task-based or behavior-based, then you're legally defensible, because you can measure, you can articulate what the actual issue is. I firmly believe that everything that is involved in coaching comes back to two basic things. Behavior, which is the tasks and the job description that somebody has been brought into your company under, and the values of your corporation and them as well. And during recruitment, you need to be aligning their values with yours. So that needs to be part of your recruitment process. So when you coach based on behavior and tasks, then your entire conversation is legally defensible, because you are observing certain tasks or certain manners in which somebody delivers, or you're addressing the why, and the why again is your values. So if you're coaching from a behavior and a value-based system, then what you're actually doing is addressing things that anybody else could see, that if a camera was watching, it would be documented as well. It isn't about your feelings or how you are reading the situation. It's observation-based. So when you observe an employee missing every fourth Monday, you are allowed to address that. And so you can ask questions like, are you struggling with coming to work on a Monday? Is Mondays an issue for you? Talk to me about that. And how you can start the conversation is, I've noticed and I've been tracking, and here's the data that I have. Data sounds a little bit formal, but it's literally why you're addressing it. And you're addressing facts in order to hopefully encourage a safe space for them to communicate. Yeah, Mondays is just, I can do it most of the time, but some days I just have so much anxiety that I can't get through, and it's really hard, and I call in sick, and I need the Monday to get ready for. And so then that allows a self-disclosure on their own. You can't force anybody to admit or give you information, but you can ask for an explanation as to why behaviors are impacting their performance or their business. So when you address the behavior and you create a safe space, then hopefully employees walk through and into that space and they self-disclose. So again, keep your conversations behavior and value-based, and you're legally defensible. And then what they give you, well, that turns into like a can of worms, but hopefully some tools and some best practices can help you through that.
Yeah. So let's elaborate on that. What do you mean by best practices when checking in with your employees or your team?
Okay, so part of that is actually having some consistency. Is this naturally part of your culture? A lot of times, have you ever been dragged into the principal's office, the teacher's office, your employer's office, and the door closes behind? And what happens? This like anxiety and this whole stress level comes along and takes over your body. Why is that? That's like Pavlov's theory. When the bell rings, the dog salivates. Well, when the door closes, we go, oh, I'm in trouble. I've been called into the principal's office. The door's closed so that nobody else can hear me getting in trouble.
Yeah.
But if you create a culture where being called into the principal's office or the boss's office is okay, and that it's just a check-in, it's a, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you responding? I've noticed improvement. Not only to give constructive or negative feedback, then that helps you be able to create that safe space so that when you do close the door, they're not in panic mode running through the roof, that they are like, oh, we'll just close the door. We must be talking about something important. Or they just want to give us space to talk so nobody else can hear. Confidentiality, privacy. So that's part of your culture. But it actually really goes all the way back to even part of the recruitment process and some of the things that you as an employer or a corporation start to take a stand for. And that looks like posting it in your job description, your own values, then affirming it in some of the questions that you ask when you interview. Asking the potential candidate about your value system, so your corporate value system, and asking them to explain it back to you so that they have an understanding of what that looks like. And that's a simple interview question. Even asking during recruitment the potential candidate how they in the past have responded to a stressful situation. Give me an example and walk me through it. And then they go back and they give you a behavioral based answer. Yeah. And so you can pick up the elements of, they actually handle stress pretty well. Okay, great. Or no, they don't, but I see a lot of other things that I can work with. So then you bring them in and you walk them through orientation and you talk about all of the things that are in place already, hopefully in place, for them to be able to use and access as an employee of your company. From orientation, you move into coaching because that's natural. You're coaching on task.
Yeah.
So when you're coaching on task, you can also get a really good sense of the individual you're coaching. And then there's follow-up coaching, 90 days. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, the 90 days, I don't know whether I'm going to keep them or not. Or a lot of companies actually just blow right through the 90 days and they don't even have conversations.
Yeah.
So it's about setting expectations and then consistently creating places, team meetings, team get-togethers that are training, that involve a self-care element, a mental health piece. If you don't have your health and safety committee always having a piece of mental health in it, you're missing the mark. Mental health should be a constant piece inside your health and safety meetings, your committee, your teams. It should be something that is always discussed, always talked about, so that it's not this dirty secret that nobody deals with. So that's what I mean when I talk about that culture, about being able to just sit down with somebody and get real with them and ask them, hey, your performance is not reflective of what's going on and where you've been in the past year, and I'm seeing a slip. Do you care to talk to me about that? And hopefully, if you've done your homework and if you've done your due diligence, you've created the space where the employee just slides into communicating and being honest with you. And then that allows you to be empowered and move forward with that.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Like, it has changed over the years. So currently, when you sit down with an employee, as an employer, what are you not allowed to ask, or what wording are you not allowed to use when you are doing a check-in?
What the hell's wrong with you? Okay, I don't. Well, I joke, but then there's still some very old school bosses, especially in the province that we live in certain industries, that's actually the way they deliver stuff. So I joke, but at the same time, it's actual, hey, it's so bad that that's a red flag. So other things that you're not allowed to deal with or talk about is or address is, what medications are you on? Who is your counselor? You're digging into the specifics of their private medical situation. That's not stuff you're allowed to ask for. Mm-hmm. So in the event that you've got a disclosure of somebody saying, I'm struggling with something, the things you are allowed to ask for is not who is your therapist, but do you have supports available to you that allow you to talk about your situation? Not who is the person that you're going to. I want to talk to them. You need to go see so-and-so. The other side of that, what you can do, some options are, have you fully explored all of the aspects of our benefits plan? Are you aware there's many supports here to help you and your health in a holistic picture? Mm-hmm. Would you like me to open up the benefits booklet and show you and explain to you some of the benefits that we have to offer? Because it should have been done, it should have, and I say it because it's a shame word, but it should have been done at time of orientation, when somebody moves into a benefits plan or when an offer is offered to an employee at the time of hire. These are things that need to happen so that when the employee has an issue, you can remember you have a benefits plan. Don't forget you have $500, or don't forget you have $1,000, or don't forget you have top up. Like I want to make sure that you have access. If you have employee support systems, so a lot of times you'll be given a 1-800 number, and you can call it, for larger corporations, you can call an employee support system, and they will connect you to resources that they know that are already in your community, your province. Some of them are corporate backed, so you can call back into another building, a head office building, and they've got an entire department that can assist you with that. It just depends on the benefits plan, but that's another resource. And then additionally, as an employer, as a corporation or a leader, are you aware of some of the community supports that are out there in the community directly in the place that you work? And so you can give that information. You can't force them. You can't, hold them accountable. Well, I expected you to go see a counselor by the end of the week. Have you done that? I want a report from that. Whoa, back off. That's none of your business. Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to ask what medications they're on, but after an absence, and if they tell you that, an injury, let's say, they go and have an injury and they hurt themselves, and due to the injury, you are allowed on re-entry to ask, are you under the influence of any medications that would impact your ability to safely operate machine X, Y, and Z, or safely handle that product or deal with that situation? Yeah,
when it's a health and safety issue.
Right. Now, a lot of employers will say, well, it's always going to be a health and safety issue. No. Is it task or value related, behavior or value? Because if you can attest to, even in an interview, you can ask a person, do you have anything preventing you from fulfilling the tasks that include being on your feet all day, lifting 25, 50 pounds, turning, spinning, moving, and not sitting other than when you were on a break? Do you have anything preventing you from doing that? And if the employee or candidate says, no, I'm quite fit, I already do that, great. You're in sync. But you are allowed to ask that question because it's task related. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the mental health and medications and where people are at, if it's task related, you are allowed to it. The wording is sometimes difficult, which, that's an entire training session on its own.
Yeah. We did just have a question come in. I'm just going to read it off and then give you a moment to answer it.
Sure.
We're tackling this a little bit more down the list, but this one is very specific. So when an employee lets down their guard and talks to you about their mental health struggles, then what? Yes, we can direct them to the resources available through benefits or online, but how much should we follow up? How do you ensure that they are getting the support that they need, which can be pretty hard to muster the energy to do when you're already struggling yourself, probably. And how do you draw boundaries so that you don't become their personal therapist? This, I find, is very common when it's small businesses with really good relationship.
Right. So take it back to what we've already talked about. What did you see that prompted this conversation? Remember, you saw something, you saw a flag on the play, you saw an action, or you saw a behavior that necessitated, that's odd, I need to do something about that. So that's the why, and as long as you remember the why, you can keep yourself detached. You can detach within a professional area. That's what I'm specifically talking about. You always have the ability, when it's task focused, to be able to check in, follow up, have conversations. So if the original conversation happens and they disclose that they're struggling with something, confidentiality is essential. Absolutely essential. They disclose to you as the supervisor. Corporate directive will tell you who you actually need to be sharing that with. If you have an HR department, often that will be disclosure to HR, because HR needs to be aware of the situation, because they would sometimes actually be part of that support system. Maybe the owner, if it's directly up and it's starting to really impact performance. But if it's something that is, just starting to bubble, it's something that you can hold on to for a little bit. Give that a little bit of time. There's no hard and fast guidance around confidentiality in the workplace. There is confidentiality about disclosure of very specific. So you can't walk around and say, oh yeah, so-and-so is on Prozac. That's a what? That's breaking confidentiality. When it comes to medical issues, if they choose to disclose with you, they're choosing out of confidence. So keep that realm. That's one of the ways that you can support. So when you take that information, it's, hey, thank you for sharing that with me. I know that must be difficult for you. That's that empathy piece. And we're going to actually kind of touch on empathy a little bit in a minute, but that's that empathy piece and being able to respond and appreciate the vulnerability that came from them. So the vulnerability comes, that really does sound like a difficult situation that you're in. Provide the resources. And one of the key words in this question was ensure that they are using the resources. You actually can't. It's not your job to make sure that you drive them to the therapist's office. You can give them all of the resources and supports and all the numbers and all of it, but you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. However, you're allowed to do another check-in because they came to you, had a conversation, you addressed performance. You are allowed to have a future conversation, and I would suggest intricate, very specific timing, consistent, reapproach and say, since the last time we talked, how do you feel your performance has been in this area? They talk about it and say, hey, well, I think I'm doing much better. What do you think? You can give your feedback, be honest. If you still have issues with performance, let them know. Yeah. If they aren't using the resources, that can be something that you can say, hey, so your performance is still an issue, I'm noticing, and give them all the facts and figures. I gave you some resources last time. Have you had an opportunity to connect with them? It's a yes or no question. If they say yes, you are in the winning column right now. You are winning. If they say no, you say, okay, I need to make sure that you understand that the actions, the results of where you are right now are not where they need to be. And I want to provide you with opportunity and the resources that I've given you to be able to improve your performance and work on any of the issues or concerns you may have with how you're feeling about coming to work, about how you're feeling about your performance. And I want to be able to support you along the way. So it's this symbiotic dance where you're just kind of, you give, they give, and back and forth. It is not hard and fast, cut and dry. There are some things that they can give you that guide you through conversation, but your conversation is based on, again, behavior and values that you are observing, that if a camera was watching the person, anybody else watching the movie would also see the same things. So your follow-up looks like the dance. It looks like support. It looks like conversation, always bringing it back to the behavior. However, one of the things as an employer that you absolutely have, once an initial mental health issue is disclosed, is a duty to accommodate up to the level of hardship. And hardship is a very large category. There have been cases on the books in labor laws that talk about duty to accommodate after somebody is paralyzed from the waist down. And duty to accommodate looks like the employer having to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars in order to make the wheelchair accessible at the place of employment. And you know, there's no cap on what that actually looks like, because it's proportionate to what is needed as the employee returns. So when it comes to mental health, duty to accommodate doesn't look like walking them through your 5-step disciplinary process hard and fast because they're not improving. It looks like providing resources, coaching, constant check-ins, documentation. I can't say it enough. Documenting your conversations so that you can, from a health and safety perspective, from a labor board perspective, prove that you've been supporting. You have to remember that this can go one of two ways. They feel supported and they start to have better progress, or they don't, and you might have to discipline them out the door after large amounts of support and accommodation.
Yeah.
Did I hit all the elements of that question?
I think so. Yes, I was following through. I think you got it all.
Okay, good.
Whoever submitted that, you can
submit. They can let me know.
More questions. Okay, so we touched on the duty to accommodate. Can we talk about what are some of the specific elements of doing a mental health check-in with your employees if you've never done one? How do you even start that?
You got to get your own motives in check, first of all. Like, this is gut check. If this is not something that is comfortable for you, figure out how to get the training to do it. Talk to people who do this well in your world, in your life, in your mentorship, in your professional world. You can't just take a stab at this blindly and expect, if you've never done this, people are going to be like, what is going on with you? Because you're saying words they've never heard. It's touchy-feely, and you were never that before. If it comes out of nowhere, it's abnormal, and it's actually very uncomfortable. For some people, it would raise the red flags of fear and suspicion, and it would just become so abnormal that they'd just be like, I'm fine. So you go and get the training, you figure out some wording, you figure out how to have a conversation. So some of the things about having a conversation, whether it's constructive feedback in the workplace or it's a mental health issue, the elements are still the same. Make time for the individual. So it's not computer open, phone on, tasks, people coming in and out of your office. It's make space. We talk about this often when we're talking about relationships, and when people have suffered trauma or any other mental incapacity, is we make space for them and their emotions so that they can kind of puke them all over the place. Because it's not going to be pretty when they're just as uncomfortable as you are about addressing some of these things, let alone with somebody who's never done it before. So if you're going to take a stab at it, you got to do the work, figure out the language, make the space, keep the confidence, reduce the fear that comes with it. So, it doesn't always have to be a closed door situation. It could just be a parking lot conversation where nobody's around, and you're removing yourselves from the chaos of the world or the business world, and you're not going into the office to do that, because that has an association that sends up the Pavlov valves in that type of situation.
Yeah.
Additionally, it needs to be them focused only. So you got to get out of your own ego, and you need to focus on their behaviors and give them space to disclose or share the motivations and the whys and the feelings behind it. Yeah. So I've addressed this, and I'm kind of concerned. It's abnormal for you. You are incredibly attentive, and you've been missing the mark on some of these things, and that's not like you, and that concerns me, not from a performance level so much. It's a red flag because it's not like you. Talk to me. Is there something going on in your world? not define. You're not assuming that it's their marriage or it's their kid or it's anything else that's going on in the world. Is there something going on in your world that is contributing to your lack of focus right now? And when you're doing that check-in for that first time because you're addressing a behavior, let the error kind of just sit. Let them not have to account and articulate and speak. If they say nothing, you say, no, I'm fine, and be like, okay, I just want to let you know that I am concerned because I see a change in you. And if you ever want to talk about it, I will make time and space for you. And it could be that quick. They might tell you what's going on, and it could still be that quick. Yep, I'm having some issues with my kid. I really don't want to get into it, but yes, I am having some issues with my kid. Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you aware of the supports? Give them the supports, give them the ideas, give them the suggestions. Don't tell them what to do in terms of act. I just want to let you know that there are some supports out there. I'm also here for you. I would like to follow up with you next week to see how you're doing. And the follow-up needs to be only about them. This isn't a tag. Well, since I'm talking to them on Thursday at lunch about this, I'm also going to talk to them about this other email that I need addressing or whatever. No. It is not. The follow-ups need to be mental health based only, not necessarily all of the other things that you need to deal with in their work world. So it's genuine. It's consistent. There's elements of empathy, not sympathy necessarily. There's value. And then there's this piece where when they share and they express what's going on, you don't have to put on your problem solve Superman hat and solve it all. You just need to be, potentially, you might only be the only person that has actually heard this, and you might be the first person that they're sharing this and disclosing this with. So if you're the first person, do you think that you are honestly supposed to be able to solve it, wrap it up, and done? We're all good? Nobody's issues are that easy to fix.
Yeah.
So be willing to dance with them, make space in their uncomfortable moment.
Yeah, that's so good. You did mention empathy a couple times. Do you want to segue to the plug of this video that we're going to be posting with this discussion as well?
Anybody who knows me knows that I love Brené Brown. I've used it in so many of my training sessions. Brené Brown has this really cute, very quick video on sympathy versus empathy, and sandwich. I love it. So we're gonna post it, and it's going to help you understand the difference between sympathy and empathy. I honestly, so I found this video 3-4 years ago, and I still watch it 2 or 3 times a year. Every time it comes up in my social media feeds, I don't just share it, I actually watch it. There is something every time that I pick out of it and go, I forgot about that, or enhance it, or get better, or it connects dots for you. The more often you watch it, the more often you're going to be able to get in the pit, referring to the video, instead of offering sandwiches. It's very, very important. So when we post this, find it, save it, share it, love it. It's under 5 minutes. I think it's actually even maybe 2.5, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It'll really help you hone in on the difference of what it looks like to sit with somebody and make space for them instead of being sympathetic and being disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can cause a night and day difference when you are sitting across from your employees.
Your employees, anybody who is ever going through any issue when it comes to mental health, and you want to be there in relationship, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the important things, I just touched upon relationship. I think one of the important things, and we talk about this when we're talking about training and coaching our team and getting better performance, is the team needs to understand the why you have an expectation of certain levels of performance and how to achieve that. But when we're dealing with mental health, how often as employers or people in position of authority, how often do we seek to understand? We often live from a position, when you have authority, we live from a position of being understood. Now, everybody wants to be understood. I get that. But when we're dealing with mental health, it's essential that when you come alongside somebody, that you come from a position and a purpose. My purpose is to remain in relationship with that person. And in order to do that, I need to seek to understand them. So you want to see their perspective, see their emotions, see their feelings, see their thoughts, not get your ideas, not your thoughts. So it's okay to say, I've noticed a drop in your performance. Talk to me about that. It's an open-ended question that they can't slam in your face because you've just presented something to them, but you're not saying, do you understand this? And this is impacting this. And I don't appreciate it when you're doing it. It's just an observation. Put it out there and then seek to understand what they're feeling, thinking, and resonating with about what you just said.
It was mentioned earlier, wondering if there is actual training, if you know that you are an employer or a team lead and this is not a strong suit for you, is there training that is available somewhat relatively easily to be able to get better at this?
So there's a variety of soft skill courses, best communication practices. There's lots of stuff in HR world, in management world. There's courses, there's trauma, there's grief. A good friend of ours is still with victim services, Janet, and she also does trauma-informed care. So she comes from a trauma-informed position. We have other people in our world who are trained on communication and two-way corrective feedback. I do two-way corrective feedback when I'm training my clients on how to give feedback. There's training in interviewing. It's all so encompassing. It honestly is. If you're a better interviewer, you're asking questions, seeking to understand. If you are a better coacher, then you are better to come along inside the mental health world. Mental health conversations usually are the pinnacle of the hardest conversations that you're going to have. Performance is really easy. If everybody's in a good mental health space, then you can just, yep, I did that, not a problem. But when you're resistant to it because you've got some issues going on or you have some concerns or you're feeling X, Y, and Z, fill in the blank, then you might be a little bit harder to receive the feedback. And that's actually part of it. So the training involves learning how to do two-way corrective feedback, being behavior and value-based when you are giving feedback and when you are observing your team. Then you can elevate into sympathy, empathy. The video will help you understand the differences. So coming from an empathetic point of view, basic listening skills. So somebody speaks, you reiterate what was said in your words. So I think what I'm hearing is, yep, got it. Okay. It's coming together, agreeing, being on the same page, and then moving from that. Then you get into crisis management. You get into debriefing and negotiation. It's all elevated. But if you've got nothing, I would say start with two-way corrective feedback. Get comfortable having conversations. Conflict is not bad. Conflict should be 95% content. But what ends up happening is we get stuck on the 5% of the tone and the attitude and the behavior and the disrespect and the interrupting and all of the other things. And we blow up the 5% and the content never gets dealt with or rarely gets dealt with because we're so offended by the 5% of the tone and the attitude and the behavior and everything else. But if you can learn to keep your own body language in check and give two-way corrective feedback in healthy ways, you're setting up an atmosphere where you and this other person, I talk about the dance, you're practicing and bringing your set skills to this partnership in this conversation. And there's a good chance that things don't blow up because you did everything possible, came with an intent to stay in relationship, and you came to seek to understand. So now they become less defensive and they actually receive your feedback and continue to dance with you.
Yeah.
So start with the two-way corrective feedback. Start with basics of communication, receiving and regurgitating it back out. I can help you with all of that. I can also connect you to the resources that are the next level for you. So wherever you are at, then let's move you to the next level.
Yeah.
There's even group communication, how to deal with communication, at a board level or at a team level, what that looks like to solicit feedback, surveying, all of that, proper wording. But the most important thing here is that we all want to remain in relationship. So when you're doing this, don't be afraid of conflict. Get empowered on how to do it effectively and with respect, and then seek to understand.
Yeah. So guaranteed, we have people right now that are watching this or will be watching this who are hearing all this information and probably feeling like this is incredibly overwhelming. How am I expected to do this, to care for people when I'm already so done? So that's realistic in this season. It's going to be realistic in other seasons as well. This is a cyclical thing that just happens with humans. It's normal. So let's address that. As an employer, how do you stay on top of your own mental health so that you can be leading a team well? How do you address yourself before you even address those other things going on with your employees?
I got a good friend that talks about putting on the oxygen mask when the plane drops the masks. Put it on before you go and help somebody else, because you need to stay strong to be able to help somebody else. So I'm going to give you a tool, an acronym that you can use for yourself, but then you also use when you go to support somebody else. This tool, the acronym is so good that the smallest little trauma or disturbance in somebody's life, you can remind them of these elements, and then you can support them through it. And anytime you're out of balance or you observe, I'm going through a season, check your own elements. So write the word down, 3, THREE. Each of these letters stands for something very specific. The first 4 are things that are essential for you to be aware of and do when you are in stress or when you are out of balance or even post-trauma. This is how you can support somebody. The last one is something to watch out for. So the T, that stands for talk. Find a trusted source where you can talk to somebody. So as the business owner, you're usually at the top of the pile all by yourself. As an entrepreneur, you're doing this whole thing and you're running a business and you're conquering the world. It's your empire and you're alone. Everybody's standing on the top of the mountain. All the entrepreneurs are like waving at each other from across huge crevices. There's this very disconnect. So when it comes to talking as an entrepreneur, find other entrepreneurs who you feel safe being around, who can mentor you, who can lead, who can support, who can encourage you. There's a million different groups out there that you can be a part of. There's consultants that you can have come along and talk to you. I have many clients who are owners of a business and they don't belong to anything else, but when they have an idea, they're strong, incredibly talented people. But when they have an idea, they still just go, I can't talk to my husband about this, but what do you think? And then they talk to me, we have coffee, we bounce the ideas off, don't forget about this, what about this? And then they walk away and they feel empowered to do it. And that all just came from a talk. So when you're a leader, who are you talking to? Are you talking to somebody who's safe and who can keep your confidences, who is supportive, who's more empathetic than sympathetic, who has healthy boundaries, who has a healthy lifestyle? If you're struggling with addiction, you probably shouldn't go talk to the friend who spends 6 days a week in the bar. It's picking out the right people to talk. It's essential that you talk about it, excuse me, because talking about your issue, your mental health, your concerns, your trauma is like a Band-Aid, the same Band-Aid. You put it on and it sticks well. You got to go have a shower the next day and you rip it off. Can you put the Band-Aid back on? You probably could. It's got enough glue, but it isn't going to stick that much. And you rip it off again and it doesn't have much stick. Well, the trauma or the issue is the stick. The more you rip the Band-Aid off, the less it actually hurts when you rip it, and it actually loses its hold, control, and power on you because you've been ripping it off so much. Mm-hmm. So talk. H is hydrate. I am a huge proponent on the hydrate. See? This is exactly half of my water required for the day. So I'll fill this up twice and make through it. Anybody who knows me knows that my common phrase is pee clear, and here's the explanation why. When you go through a ton of stress, high emotions, we tend to forget about our water intake. Well, water has a huge consequence on your brain and your body. Let's start with headaches, tension, chemical absorption, blood circulation, clarity. It impacts whether you can sleep or not, and all of those things have trickle-down effects. Filtering of chemicals, any issues, foods, anything you're doing. So water is huge. Muscle aches, all of it. So water is huge. Hydration. When you go through a high stress situation, I actually advise, and I've said it to some of my clients and their teams, when you go through high stress, what ends up happening is adrenaline sends fight or flight, and you end up with this overload of cortisol. And cortisol lives in your body until it finds a way out. Well, the cortisol creates this fatigue and stress and irritability and muscle aches and pain. And it only leaves in two ways: through sweat and through your urine. So if you up your water after a stressful situation or a stressful moment, stressful day, stressful season, if you up your water, what you're actually doing is you're speeding up the process of the cortisol evacuation, because you're going to hopefully be urinating more, and then you're going to be peeing clear. So this is where pee clear comes from. Drink so much water in a day that you pee clear, especially post-stress. Now, if we're just talking about the season we're in, 15 months of pandemic, are you getting your minimum daily required amount of water? And that looks like 2 liters of water. It's about 64-ish ounces of water. If you aren't, you're starting from the negative column no matter what you do. And I'm not talking about coffee because of all the stuff that's in that. I'm actually just talking about water. It also helps with skin elasticity and, you know, keeps you younger and keeps the wrinkles away. So for a vanity purpose, there's that. So the hydration is essential, and how you know you're doing it well, you're peeing clear.
Cool.
So that's the H.
Water in my mug.
That's good. So I need to take a drink. Sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not going to apologize for that.
Everybody takes a drink collectively together.
Right. So we get into R, and that's routine. Do you have a routine, and are you moving away from it? Do you have a healthy routine that includes exercise, sleep, emotional connection time with safe peoples? Mm-hmm. Do you have a routine that involves, you know, burning the candle at both ends? Well, that's not healthy. That's not going to be sustainable. I don't mean every day exactly at 5:01 I roll out of bed. Every day exactly at 5:15 I'm in the gym. Like, I'm talking about structure that allows you to find a rhythm or a balance to do this dance called life, that allows you to have some safety in what you know is coming around the corner, that creates safety for you to respond on the fly because you've got some stability and consistency in your world. If anything that we know about this pandemic, with all of these legislative changes, business owners have had to stressfully navigate and move on the fly and change, and a presser comes along tomorrow and we're going to have an announcement of this, and how's it going to impact me? All of this flying by the seat of our pants has created this stress. So if you can find routine in other parts of your life and get your team to find routine, then that helps with the mental health aspect. The last one, excuse me. The last one to worry about, to be concerned about, is exercise. Are you finding ways to get your blood pumping? Sometimes the fun ways, if that's what you want, and sometimes just the ways that is completely about you getting the blood and circulation going. And if you say, I don't have time for it, okay, I can understand that, and I agree with that. Some days I don't feel like it either. I haven't made a priority of it. That resonates with me. But let me give you one example of something that is so simple that you can incorporate into your day that actually helps with the exercise. Your mind has a maximum efficiency level when it comes to working on a task. Maximum efficiency is achieved at about 45 to 50 minutes. So if you start your day at 9 o'clock, you set a timer for 45 minutes, timer goes off, what do you have to do? If you're drinking enough water, there's one chance that you're probably going to the bathroom. But that means you got to get out of your chair, the timer goes off, you go to the bathroom, you refill your water, you do a walkabout. I'll get into that when I train and coach teams, but if you're a leadership, walk about wherever your team is, and check in with them, have those conversations, go on a walkabout, stretch. And by the time that that's all done, you're looking at about 10, 12, 15 minutes, get back in your chair and start the cycle again. So now what you've done is you created 6 to 7, maybe 9, depending on how long your shift is, opportunities for you to do the water, the bathroom, the team accessibility, checking in with them, the stretching, and then you get back and you do your work. So that's one of the smallest ways that you can incorporate exercise and blood flow into your day if you aren't already watching a stepwatch or participating in an activity, because it's hard, especially during a pandemic. Get outside, go for a walk. I some days feel so unmotivated that the only thing I can do is I know that there's a block in my neighborhood that I'm like, I can do a 1K and I'll just go for a walk and I can pull that off. And then some days you get to that corner and you're supposed to finish the 1K and you think, I'm going to go left and I'm actually going to go the other way and I'm going to get a 2.5.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about exercise. Find ways to incorporate exercise into your world. And the reason is not because of you want to look good, it's because you need to get the blood pumping.
Yeah.
The last E is excessive. Excessive of anything is a warning sign. So if you're a type of person who has a glass of wine with dinner, but you go through a season where you're starting to make that into 3 or 4, that's excessive. If you work out 3 times a week, but the way you're dealing with stress is 6 times a week, you're not doing any competitions, but this is the only way you can work it out, it might be a flag on the play. Excessive smoking, excessive sex, excessive anything. Yes, that can be a bad thing. There are things that are abnormal for your behavior that if you step into excessive in that realm, that it is a warning flag for somebody to say, hey, I noticed you're going through something. Want to talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
So watch out for excessive use or activity of any type.
Good.
So there's your 3. The word 3 wrote out, and that's your self-check. Remember, sleep fits inside. Sleep is like this anomaly that everybody varies. But if you can find sleep in your routine piece, and that R, it's also essential too, right? Because sleep contributes to clarity and stress levels, and a lot of people don't know this, but 90% of the healing of your body happens when you sleep. So if you can do, and now I'm not a medical expert, so I don't want to tell you what drugs or incentives to take or do or ingest prior to nighttime, but if you can find ways to make sure that you sleep, you are setting yourself up for healing, rest, recuperation, and you're setting yourself up to be in a better position tomorrow morning than not getting sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. We are nearing the end of this discussion. So if you do have questions that you want Dawn to answer live, please drop them into the chat. You can send them privately either to myself or to Dawn, and we will quickly tackle those beforehand. Otherwise, feel free to send us a private message or to comment on this once it gets posted. Let us know if there's anything that you wanted us to cover before we end this. So there's just a couple extra things. I did have somebody ask if you would be able to do up a graphic or something on your social media with this acronym so that they can remember and save it. That's what we can do?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
I think I have a person that can handle that for me, graphics and pretty. I think I got a few people for that.
That's super convenient. Okay, so let's chat about what are some resources that can be provided to employers to have readily accessible so that you can supportively lead your team mental health wise as a part of your culture of your business. What are some resources that are available?
So we're going to actually provide a lot of the organizations in the province of Alberta, the contact names and numbers. Some of them will translate over into other provinces, but because you can still call them from outside of the province. But we're going to provide those numbers and resources and even a little bit of a snippet of a description as to why you're calling them. And 211 here in Alberta is one very specific one. You literally pick up a phone call, 211. They will do an intake with you in terms of tell me about your situation. What do you think you need? They'll tell you where do you live, and then they'll direct you based on what is already in your community. Specifically, most communities have a social services agency. In the province of Alberta, We have FCSS, Family Community Support Services. So you can call FCSS and they will do the same thing. They might be even more in tune with what's going on in our community and specifics and who to talk to. And then, you know, you kind of zoom out and you get your provincial health organizations. You also get, you know, Canadian Mental Health Association, CMHA, look that up, and they have tons of resources. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm just kind of putting them together and listing them, and that's the PDF you're going to drop. The resources are just as important, but you have to be able to offer the resources in a manner that isn't like flag on the play, everybody paying attention. I'm handing the emotional mental health resources to the person who needs them. Yeah. So you want to make it accessible, readily available. And so one of the recommendations that I would say is this PDF is about a page and a half. I would take and I would put it in a plastic sleeve, put it in an area that everybody sees it, so that as they're walking by, they can see the numbers and have access to them. I would also encourage every leader to take that page and a half and print it off and then give it individually to everybody so they all have it as an individual level. That way, if you forget to do it or give it to somebody at orientation, they're still going to see it in the lunchroom if that's where the general posting is, or on the back of the bathroom stall if you've got a unisex bathroom, on the back of the bathroom door next to the evacuation plan. The back of the bathroom door is a really good place because often that's where the place where stress happens. Somebody will run to the bathroom and feel like falling apart because that's the only place they can fall apart. And then if that number kind of is a potential spark as to how to access that resource. So there's that. Then there's also, depending on what you think your team needs in terms of training or additional supports, contact me. And, you know, I can either send you in a direction with the resources. Call me 211 for a little bit here. I can be your 211 and direct you based on where you're at, or I can come along and offer the training that will help you and your team move through the season that we're in. Something that I think is essential right now, it just keeps coming up with all of my clients. My clients are concerned with not getting back to normal, because that's just a weird way, but they're kind of trying to figure out how to get the train out of the station after this big long pause. And one thing that I keep coaching them and encouraging them to do is, if you don't address mental health, if you don't address the past 15 months that we've all been living in, the reality, the situation, the hardships, the grief, the changes, if you don't address that and you just kind of get back to normal, if you have that normal attitude, your team's going to fall apart because they're going to feel unvalidated. They're going to feel a disconnect between you. They're not going to be motivated to, because we're not all in this together. You're just out there to, you know, build your business and do all these things. And meanwhile, we're all like, I don't even know how to get out of the train. I'm so stressed. They're still focused on them. They're not going to get in on your vision, on your plan, on your train that needs to move forward. Yes, your business is important. But if you overlook and sidestep the impact that this pandemic has had, not just in your world, but throughout the world, in your country, in your community, in your business, in the people's lives of your business, you're missing the biggest mark ever. Address it, help them through it, have a team meeting about mental health, bring it out of the darkness and into the light and say, me too. You know, my own me too was the first 2 months of the pandemic. I was out there helping and supporting everybody. And then we had this kind of lull for a little bit. And that's when my fight or flight shut off, because I'm a fighter. So I was fighting for everybody. I actually powered out and burnt out. I had to stop watching press conferences. And that was one of the things I was doing for people. I had to stop giving information. I just literally fell off the grid for a full week. And physical pain, I literally had cortisol leaving my body, because I'd been on for 2 months straight. Everybody has a story. Every one of us has a story. Share your story, and that's how you come into a relationship, because you get vulnerable and you get real and raw with people, and they'll do the same. And then together, once it's all out, we can all move forward together. I'll get on and I'll come along your vision, and I'll do anything you need me to do for you on your behalf in your business if you care about me. That's all people and employees genuinely want. Care about them, and they will move mountains for you.
Yeah. Yeah. This is setting such a solid foundation in your workplace and in your culture of what you want to build for your organization too. Like, this isn't, we're in a pandemic, so let's address this. This should be every day of the week.
Yeah.
And setting the foundation when the world is healthy is definitely easier. But this is something that you shouldn't be saying like, next time I do it differently. No, right now we're going to do it differently.
Right.
Yeah.
You can beg for forgiveness. You can talk to your team and you can say, hey, I'm sorry. I haven't done this right since you've been employed. Don't be afraid to do that. Just say, but I actually want to do it better in the future. So bear with me while I learn how to do this better. I'm taking training, or I'm learning how, or I've got some information. I want to do better for you and for our business. So can you kind of have some patience while we try and take a stab at that? And then just do it.
Yeah. Well, Dawn, is there anything else that you wanted to add on quickly before we end this discussion?
No, I think it's really important that everybody acknowledge, first of all, y'all showed up at this. Y'all showed up and you were willing and you followed us from the other social media page to
we're sorry.
sit and listen. And we really appreciate you listening, because what that says to us is that you're committed to this as well. You or your employer who made you show up, whatever it may be, but you are committed to actually doing this and caring about this and getting better at this. I promise you that if you attempt to do this, you're going to have some bumps, but as you practice it, you're going to become more comfortable. It's going to naturally flow out of your mouth. It will impact your team, your relationships, your friendships, and it's actually going to work in you as well. Follow the 3 and pay attention to it, and that will overflow into almost everything you do.
Yeah, so good. So again, if you are not following Dawn, please go do that. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, the world, under Next Level Consulting. This powerhouse is someone that you definitely want on your team forever and ever. Dawn, thank you so much for doing this with us. I value your wisdom. You are just, you're moving mountains for people, and that's just so encouraging to see. So thank you for that.
I'm going to interrupt you just to say thank you for having us. Thank you for having me and creating the space for us to have this conversation, and for being responsive to the original conversation that you had with another individual and saying, I think I need to bring this up and talk about it. I got a person to do it, but let's together bridge this gap and start talking about this issue.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jess.
You're very welcome. So we will be posting the link for the video that we talked about empathy. Please give it a watch and share it with your circles. It is very impacting and something that is incredibly practical. And I think you'll realize, even taking it into next week, it'll change the conversations that you're having in your approach already, and that's already a step forward. So that, as well as the PDF, we will be posting the link for you guys to open it and read it off and print it and put it in accessible areas. It will really help. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. We will be posting this. We're going to put it onto our blog as well as on our social media, and probably on Dawn's as well. Give it a watch, share it with your teams, have a team meeting over it, and start those conversations. We want those conversations to happen, and let us know how it goes as well. If you have any other questions afterward, or even follow up where you need a little bit of wisdom, send a message. We are open, we are here for you, and we are cheering you on in this season and in the ones to come.
Thanks, Jessica. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.